this is a bigger discussion again. For those of you that were here last year, you remember I adamantly said that I would never do this again, and last year would be my swan song. And lo and behold, in the tank that you have not seen is that was a bigger discussion 5 last year. In the tank that you have not seen was a bigger discussion 6, which was the state of women-owned businesses. And now this is going to be the bigger discussion 7, which is the state of minority-owned businesses. So unless there's some other owned businesses, because we covered veteran, we covered LGBTQ, so unless there's some new categories coming up, this should be the last bigger discussion. When we put out the postcard, I already got some, well, I feel kind of good because I was trolled. And I had some people saying, why are you talking about minority business? Why not supplier diversity? Why minority business? What about the other folks? So, this is the Minority Supplier Development Council conference, so it seems like a good place to talk about minority business. So, that was just my thought. So, we have a very distinguished panel. I will not do them the injustice of trying to introduce them or read their bios, but I will cut you off, even you, new president. I will give you 2 minutes to say, and what I'd like you to do is just say who you are, briefly what the mission of your organization is, and any other thing you want to tell us in 2 minutes or less. And we will start with you, Madam President Adrienne Trimble. Go!
Good afternoon. My name is Adrienne Trimble, President and CEO of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. Hold on. Pause off. I gotta go. The mission of NMSDC, our mission is to connect minority businesses with corporate supply chains to provide innovative solutions. I do have to take a second because welcome to our conference. We are very excited to be here, to have you all here as our guests. Unfortunately, we're very excited to have you here. That a lot more people turned out for lunch than we anticipated, and we couldn't feed everybody at the luncheon. So if you arrived at the luncheon and you were registered for the luncheon and could not get your lunch, please see Millie in the back. Make sure she gets your business card. If you miss her, go down to registration. You will be refunded for your lunch. If you were served a lunch in one of the containers, you'll be refunded for your lunch. Make sure you see Millie or go downstairs because we treat our guests with respect and dignity, and we're glad that you're here. We just got overly excited and we have so many people, but we're glad you're here and we're going to take care of you. Thank you.
That was easy. All I had to do was say the blessing. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Ken Harris, President and CEO of the National Business League. Founded 118 years ago by the Dr. Booker T. Washington in Tuskegee, Alabama. I'm happy to announce that I took the realm of the organization a year ago, and we are now relaunching the most powerful platform for African American businesses in the entire country. We are now in 4 regions, in Los Angeles, DC, Atlanta, and we recently moved the headquarters from DC to Detroit, where it's been since 1966. And we will serve as the voice for African American businesses all across the country and throughout the diaspora. Our number one goal is to provide business solutions for business problems. Simple.
My name is Susan Allen. I'm a Chinese American. I am a recovering lawyer. I'm a product of China and import from Hong Kong.
This is going to be really interesting.
Amen. You're really cutting costs. Congratulations and join the club. I am the master of the thrift club. Once again, Susan Allen. I'm a Chinese American, full-fledged, a product of China, and import from Hong Kong, where I went to high school and came here after high school. So therefore, I'm a long-time resident and a citizen of the United States. I practiced law, and accidentally, 15 years ago, I got into this job where I really find my water. I I'm swimming in it, I'm excelling, and I'm enjoying it. This is not a job. This is a mission. This is my religion. The U.S. Pan-Asian American Chamber of Commerce was founded 33 years ago as a single unified voice that represented very diverse Pan-Asian Americans that include East, Southeast, South, and Pacific Island Americans. 30 years ago, there was no organization that represented the business and professional interests of the very diverse Pan-Asian American business and professional community. If you count those with over 1 million people in the country, there are 6 groups: the Chinese, the South Asians, the Filipinos, the Vietnamese, Korean, and the Japanese. And there are many others. Our goal is to make sure that the ever-growing Pan-Asian American community in the United States will continue to have opportunities, just like all of our brothers and sisters here. We look different, we're treated differently. We have been driven out from communities all the way back in the 1700s. We've been persecuted just as some other Americans. But we've also enjoyed the freedom America offers. So we want to be the place where we could open doors, build connections, and create an environment where the Pan-Asian American business and professionals in business can participate equally in the American dream, in corporate government, and large nonprofit procurement. Thank you for inviting me, Scott. Thank you so much.
Hi, welcome to Indian country. I am a First American. I represent, I'm a member of the Prairie Dan Potawatomi Nation out of the great state of Kansas and one of our former tribal chairs. My name is Tracy Stanhoff. I own a company called AdPro. We've been in business over 30 years here now. I'm a product of this organization. I'm happy to say I've gotten a lot of opportunities. I want to thank numbers of our clients out there. I'm a national winner of their National Minority Supplier of the Year 1 year, so it's just a great organization. I'm president, and I'm honored to be president of the American Indian Chamber of Commerce, both in California, in our national group. Our mission is to educate, mentor, advocate, and support for tribal enterprises, Alaska Native corporations, American Indians, and Native Alaskan businesses. I also am program director for the best American Indian PTAC, a Procurement Technical Assistance Center in the country. We serve 206 tribes in Idaho, Washington State, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and California, the home of the most American Indians in the country. And I'm just happy to be here, and thank you, Scott and Adrian, and all you folks. I gotta give you a tease, you know I love you.
Wait until tonight.
That's why I'm wearing a running suit.
That's all right.
So let's give these folks a round of applause. And Adrian, I don't know if you know with the bigger discussion, we like to start off with a lightweight question, to get everybody kind of, get their feet wet, make them feel at home. So my first lightweight question is going to come to you. I know you've only been in this job like 2 or 3 months, but this is called the National Minority Supplier Development Council. Are you going to put the development back in it, or are you going to change the name?
Well, you're correct. I've only been in this role 2 months. I was warned about you that this was hard-hitting information, so I was warned. It's going to take a lot more than that to knock me over. But what I will say is that I have had the opportunity in these 2 months to really go on somewhat of a listening tour to hear from our constituents, and I have heard the recurring theme over and over that we do need to put more resources and emphasis around developing our minority suppliers, not just for today's opportunities, but for future opportunities. We know that there's a digital transformation that's taking place out there, and our MBEs have to be positioned to be a part of that supply chain. We also know that our MBEs are aging. We know that they don't have strong succession plans in place. We know that we've reached this level, now I'm saying this a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but there's a level of prosperity that exists in some of our minority supplier organizations that their kids are not trying to run their businesses for them now. So what happens when they decide they want to retire? What happens to those entities so that we can make sure that they continue to be the staples in our communities to help with the job development and the economic impact? We also know that we have a whole millennial generation out there that have no desire to work with corporate America to some degree, and they are looking to be entrepreneurs. So how do we even get that next generation ready? So we have a lot of opportunity around the development piece, and that is going to be a part of the platform, the administration that I am bringing back to the NMSDC.
All right, so the name is staying. I like it.
The name is staying. Are you kidding me? Here, Michelle was running around here. You think I'm changing the name?
I hear you. So I would like to, let's start with Tracy, and this is a question for everybody, and we'll just come down the road. I've been doing this for, I don't know, way too long to remember, and every time I talk about issues with minority businesses, the first thing that comes up is access to capital. So I am sick of hearing access to capital as the main thing that minority businesses need to concentrate on. Tracy, starting with you, what's your number one issue other than access to capital? Then we'll come down the line, Sue, Ken, Adrian.
I think in our community, we're really growing and our businesses are doing really well. And I'm happy to say we've got one of our businesses over there, Hal Hayes Construction. That's the second generation owner of Hal Hayes, Kirby Hayes, and he's up for an award the next night. So we are really looking at succession planning in our chamber, and we do a lot of development. So the biggest issue that we have is keeping the opportunities flowing and advocacy. So, I think I talked to you a little bit before, Adrian, that session saying we need your help. We need your advocacy. We need a big stick here at the national level to keep that going in our communities.
I think we all share common issues and aspirations in the minority, business and women, and I call it diverse community. Access to capital, access to business opportunities, access to the right people at the right time, at the right places, access to the right training to be included in places where opportunities thrive. Once again, I also hark back to the Asian Americans who've been here since 499 AD, but still a smaller minority group, but it's the fastest growing group in the last 10 years. Our numbers in immigrating legally to the United States surpass those from the southern part of the border. And in the year 2055, the Asian American will be 38 million people, the largest minority group in the country. But we still feel that we have been treated differently. We've been stereotyped into particular professions. Many of my South Asian members say that when I walk to a corporate member, I hope that we can really be honest about this. That's what I was told, that this is the place you can actually speak your mind. We've been stereotyped into particular professions. They are put stereotype into a particular business, and therefore, when the business is saturated with a lot of suppliers, nobody would talk to them. And that is my major problem, our members' major problem. Not given equal chance. We like to compete on the merit. We're all minorities on our capability, and let's do that.
Scott, no problem. Doc, can I speak truth to power?
I'd be insulted if you did.
Okay. All right, folks, don't mind me because I guess my comments will not be emotional but more data-driven. To be honest with you, you asked about access to capital. I would say, more importantly, I think this entire system needs a reboot. And I question the fact, has diversity for black folks been a diversion? And what I mean by that is out of the 2.9 million black businesses across the country, 95% of those businesses are between 1 and 5 employees. That means there's a huge gap of underserved, marginalized, and isolated folk who are disconnected not only from the resources but from organizations that should be advocating on their behalf. I credit those many successes that we've had for business owners in the black community all across the country that have made successes of themselves, created jobs, and participated in NMSDC from its inception. But I believe at this time, Not only do we see a new generation where technology is really going to separate the success of our organizations, we really have to transcend the black community into this new technological revolution. And with that being said, is that we have to ask ourselves, post-slavery, they gave us 40 acres and a mule, they gave us emancipation, they gave us the Freedmen's Bureau, the bank didn't last, the emancipation was short, and every time black folks tried to enter the economic mainstream of society, there's always been barriers in place. Those barriers still exist today. And so now that we not only know that from a policy standpoint, everyone else has had a lobbying arm with the federal government and made their voices heard to not only advocate for reparations in the Asian community, black folks are still have not been left to give reparations. And so for those small business owners who are looking to get to scale, those 95% of black businesses that we hope become members of NMSDC, and that's my job, is to prepare those businesses who do not have capacity, scope, and scale and access to prepare them, to develop them, and to create access so that they become eventual members to compete for Fortune 500 contracts. And so hopefully, not only will the National Business League challenge the system, but we're going to question from a data-driven standpoint. Not only have black folks started out the game so that everyone else at the table could benefit, but while we started out the race, we have ended up at the end of the race. And so now it's time to have a real discussion, Scott, on where black business is and how we can push forward in partnership with our other minority partners. And I don't even agree with that word, because I think that's a diversion too. Pretty soon, the majority of the minority community will be the majority population of this country. And I love my white women, sisters, and business owners as well, but you all have benefited from civil rights more than black folks have, when I know how many years and how many generations black people have been out on the struggle. And we've turned the corner both politically, socially, and educationally, but we have not turned the corner economically.
Get back over here, my lane in NMSDC. So, I think one of the challenges that we don't talk enough about, and it was somewhat said this morning at the Power Breakfast, a lot of ways for businesses approach today, it's really relational. It's about relationships. And I can tell you, when I look at some of our minority suppliers, they don't even have the opportunity to develop those relationships inside corporations with decision makers. Many times they're stopped at the gatekeeper, and they don't even get past that person to even be able to establish a direct line of communication that can help them help decision makers understand their ability to do business, their capability, and their capacity that they have. And I don't think we have enough conversation around that, because I think it's really important for us to know that we have to find ways to get our minority businesses access to the folks who are the true decision makers in the company, and have those true decision makers come to events like these to understand the capability and the capacity of the minority suppliers that are at the table. I can't tell you how many times I hear, I'm looking for minority suppliers and I can't find them. I haven't seen you at a trade show. I've not seen you at any of these events actually talking to these minority suppliers one-on-one about what their capabilities are. So until we can get that real interaction that happens with the decision makers, I think we're going to continue to face challenges with our minority suppliers getting access to real opportunity.
Well, Ken, I want to respond to your concern about many of the African American businesses are between 1 to 5 employees. In the small business community, I think 72% or more of the American businesses are small businesses with less than 10 employees. So we are in good company, and many of them do take risks, more risks than anybody else. They mortgage their home. Some of our members use their kids' college fund to start a business, and the wife would go back to work and help when so the husband can man the business. We have that. I think that one important thing we need to do in order to be together is do what USPAACC has done with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, with the U.S. Black Chamber, and with the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. We came together 3 years ago and formed an alliance and helped to train our own respective chambers leaders so that we can go home and train our own chamber regional chapter presidents and board of directors and advisors. And as to what is the real problem, And Adrian, I must say this. NMSDC started this movement, and we all stand on your shoulders, just like many Americans stood on the shoulder of the civil rights movement. But time has changed, and American demographic and the technological innovation moved us to a different era. So I just want to stop here and then fill in the blank later.
You know, I have to address that, what you just said, Sue. I don't think that training program was very good. And the reason I want to say that, and I love you, you know I do, and I know you're trying real hard, but it doesn't work for all minorities the same. And, you know, our chamber, yeah, no question it does. And our chamber showed up, and, you know, we're American Indian people. We come in all different sizes, shapes, and colors, you know. Not all of us look like Pocahontas. Not all of us look like Elizabeth Warren. And damn her for taking a DNA test and saying she's Native American. That is, I love Elizabeth Warren. I've spoken to her several times, but that is so not right. You know, just stand up to Trump and tell him, you know, that's such a slander. But anyway, we had one of our people show up that doesn't look like a stereotypical Native American. You know, we don't wear feathers. I'm in a tracksuit today, but it's a long story. But anyway, and I was a chief of my tribe. So this is what a Native American looks like. And, you know, one of the people from your group said, you don't look like an Indian. And that was so bad. And I just want to call you out on it. And I just want to say, you know what? We aren't in it together. We need to take care of our own. You know, I hear what the black fellow says about here, and you take care of his people. You know, I'm right with you, man. You take care of your people. We all need to pull up our own bootstrings, and not that we all have to sing Kumbaya together, but we need to respect each other, respect our differences, and take our cultures and move on to the next level and take our own selves into economic self-sufficiency. And that's what we're trying to do with our American Indian chambers. We're real Indians, working in real businesses. I don't care if it's one person in that business, or 400 or 500 people in that business, or in our gaming enterprises where we're taking America back one quarter at a time.
Yes, I definitely want to say something. So I think it's really important for us to talk about the differences in what we do and how we interact and help impact our communities and the corporate supply chain. NMSDC is designed to help minority suppliers gain access to corporate America. That is what our mission is. And we do that by making sure that we have certified minority businesses within our supply chain. I think there is an opportunity for us to work more closely with your chambers, because as you talk about those that have the capacity to scale and get to that next level, there are a lot of minority suppliers that exist within our network that can help them with that and help them get there. So I think we have to understand what our lanes are and make sure that we stay in our lanes and that we can make sure that we are being successful in our individual missions and our collective missions.
I totally agree with you. And, you know, I say my business AdPro is a product of your organizations. It is, and I thank you for that. I'm really blessed to be able to take that back to my tribe and help hundreds of other American Indian Alaska Native Homes businesses.
All right, so I guess I'll say something now. So Tracy, this goes to you and then dovetails off to Ken. If this were the Supplier Diversity Olympics, I feel like the American Indian, Native Americans are coming in last. So why is that? And next to last is probably African Americans. So Ken, why is that? But let's let Tracy go first.
Well, you know, it's interesting you asked me this because yesterday a story came out in the LA Times about a prominent Republican, and I'm not being political, I'm just saying it happens all the time this way. Congressman Kevin McCarthy, whose brother-in-law pretended to be Indian and got $7 million worth of contracts recently. Yeah, it's true. I mean, here are real Indians trying to get the contracts and don't get the access. And, you know, somebody who's got connections who's not Native, he pretended to be part of a fake tribe. It's real easy to find out if it's a real tribe. Go to NCAI, National Congress of American Indians.org, and there's a list of all the 573 tribes in the United States. But It's a shame, and we don't advocate for ourselves enough. We don't have a strong national association, and part of that's my fault, and part of it's Indian country's fault. We should be leading our ways and pulling ourselves up by our own bootstrings. And we will do it. It's political, and it's part of our fault. But yeah, we do come in last, even though we're mighty, we're small, and we're gaining traction, I think, and we'll keep going. Help with folks like you and NMSDC and Sue.
So to be honest with you, Scott, I think in perspective, there's been revisionist history. And me being an economist, my PhD is in economics and black studies, and so I know black people. Historically, the significance of the black struggle in terms of civil rights, political rights, educational rights has not transcended to economic rights. And so all throughout history, we've always seen this I call it diversion of diversity. That diversity does not mean inclusion. And in the Civil Rights Bill, it did not have an economic agenda attached to it. And that's the game that's been played. And so where we find ourselves now as black people, again, you see that African American women are the fastest growing segment of businesses in the entire country. You see black businesses growing 3 times the national rate. We got to disrupt and tear apart the old models that have existed, the ivory tower models, the chicken dinner chambers of commerce. And we got to get to more development. We got to get to intentional design. We have to be led by data-driven scenarios, and we have to embrace technology. I see black folks are the most social media, smartphone users I've ever seen in the entire world. But do we transcend that to entrepreneurial mindsets and pursuits? Why are we so scared of AI? Why are we scared of cyber inclusion? Why are we scared of the trending opportunities that's in front of? And I think this is a wonderful opportunity, not just for black businesses, but for the entire minority business community. I think our fearless president, who has assumed the role the last 2 months, is exactly right. You all are founded on the behest of the corporate organizations to fill a spin and to meet qualified MBEs. I understand that. But as advocacy organizations who are in the grassroots, who are touching those businesses who don't have capacity, scope, or scale, who need a ton of resources, who need access, who need technology, and who need the basic needs of forming a business to become bankable and investable, that is really going to be the task of us as advocacy organizations and partnering with NMSDC to make sure that we have the best of talent and technology in front of us. And so with that being said, you know, and you know, data's come out now, you know, black folks has been close to the indigenous nature of this country as Indian people. It's just the country played a game on us and they separated us. So we all alike with melanin in our skin.
Right, well, that's true, and you know, I'm not saying anything against that, but what I will say is that at least you have access to technology. There are reservations in this country to this day that don't have water running, they don't have electricity, they don't have infrastructure, they don't have roads, they don't have cable TV, they don't have the cell phone service. My tribe, we're a poster child for what's right, I think, in what we're doing. We had to build our own. Is anybody from Sprint here? They should be thanking us. There are thousands of Sprint customers courtesy of the Prairie Down Potawatomi Nation. So
So I guess I'm thinking about this and thinking about some of your comments that you made, Ken, in terms of, you know, how do we right this ship? And I think we have to take a step back and start thinking about the true implications and how do we really measure success? What does success look like? We've got to get from moving from counting contracts to actually counting business solutions that we're bringing to the table that make a difference in corporations that have the impact to our communities. I think we've got to stop looking at this as a contract by contract basis, a dollar for dollar spend, and actually understand what are we accomplishing by the work that we do? What's the real outcome of that work? And you start thinking about this from the next generation that we need to get ready. We need to have our young people involved in the STEM fields today, and introducing them at a very young age. You look at our kids, and you're right. They are using iPhones and technology of that sort, but we're not taking the time to help them understand what happens behind the scenes with that. We have to have those conversations now, and we know that we have businesses that exist within our network today. How are they giving back to those young people and making sure that they have the opportunity to understand how they can be entrepreneurs and use that as an advantage to help them become more sufficient and prepared for careers in business development in the technology fields?
Today's topic is the state of minority-owned businesses, so I'd like to talk about that. I'm not into politics. No. If you don't trust me, who else could you trust? Well, as Scott knows, and many in the audience know, in the corporations, that I am a straight shooter. I'm an arrow, straight arrow. You get what you see. And that was why I put off my lawyer's hat some years ago and became the full-time president of USPAACC. I sued the federal government during the Republican administration and won. I drew blood. And not only did I win, I asked for attorney's fees and I got six-figure checks from them. That's why I was able to quit law and start this job on a volunteer basis for 1 year. And I loved it. I never returned to law. So I did not come from privileged background either. There's another place to talk about it. But let us go back to the state of minority-owned businesses. I cannot, and I'm not an expert in African American-owned businesses. I'm not an expert on Native Americans. I am an expert, at least in this room, on Asian American-owned businesses. And by the way, Scott, Emiro Cavazos, who is the new president of the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, has asked me personally to send his greetings to you all and send his regrets. This morning, he has previously committed engagement with the Secretary of Treasury this morning and talk about Hispanic businesses. He said, Susan, you can speak for us because we have worked with them for 3 years and we got to know a lot more about the Hispanic business community and the other communities very well throughout 3 years. And I'm sorry that one of my members said, offended you by saying that you don't look like an Indian. I don't know what. Well, somebody, I don't know what they mean sometimes. Coming from Asia, Indian means South Asian. Indian. So they might have thought that, the person might have thought that, well, you. So whatever that is, let me apologize. If that, indeed that was a misunderstanding. But I also want to defend our program. It was appropriate for our constituents. We loved it. And we gained a lot of it. We never expected to get 100% out of anything that we get involved in. Come, let's look at NMSDC and even my own conferences, for example. And I want to, again, put what is the big problem in the room in a business environment like here. A major conference, the largest of its kind, bringing together the minority business communities together. For a long time, and I learned, after Harriet retired, when I met Josette for the first time, she told us, my members, that NMSDC is there to serve the corporate community. It's for the corporate America's interest. And at least my members who were there at that conference were there to do what? To try to get some business from them. But that's neither here nor there. But the major problem we have here at NMSDC is that corporations are consolidating their contracts. Contract rationalization. In Washington, D.C., it's called contract bundling. They put all the small contracts together and let it out for bid. So at the time when smaller minority and women-owned and all the diverse businesses are coming out of the woods to try to get a piece of that action, there are more suppliers than opportunities. There's no match. I question what corporations are able to take care of all these businesses. And here we talk about the 1 to 5 employee small businesses. They aspire to come here and get some business out from the major Fortune 100, 500, 1,000 corporations. Chances are nil. So let's be realistic. Let's put the real issue on the table and see what we could do with corporate America. And listen, the federal government is moving in the same direction, except for the federal government, the bureaucrats are there. They won't move. But in corporate America, they will move. And that's a real issue for all of us.
Adrian, you look like you're about to bust.
Yeah, I gave her my time.
Well, I'm hearing a couple of themes here, and I'm going to start with two of them, and one is going to be controversial, so I'm going to say it secondly. But the first, I think, is we've got to get back to a level of accountability with our corporations. I think that we have to understand, when you look at the buying power of our collective groups, it's significant. And we need to make sure that, I hear a lot of what, as you are talking about representing your individual constituent groups, we are more powerful together. And if we have some opportunities to identify shared agendas, we need to do that, because I think that's where we have more ability to have an impact and hold corporations much more accountable for doing business with the folks who are the end users of their products and services. So we've got to get back to that level of intensity and interaction with our top leaders in corporate America, so that they hear us. I don't think we're being heard today.
I agree with you 100%, Adrian. And this is not an emotional argument in 2018 going into 2019. Data, it used to be he who holds the gold rules, he who holds the data rules. And I don't think that we've had a true assessment of the minority business environment. More importantly, we can have a shared agenda, but if each of the links are weak, it don't make any point in a shared collective, collaborative agenda. And as African American businesses across the country, if we are to compete, and if we are to move into a new generation where entrepreneurship and economic empowerment is at the forefront of our communities, then we have to really take into existence to take care and focus on the things that are important, and that's moving an entire new generation of thought into the next generation of economic development. That's what this is about. It's about the money. It's about opportunities. And where there's not opportunities in corporate America, where you see the decreasing of black executives, both on the board levels, both as far as supplier diversity is concerned. And I got to speak to all my friends who are in the supplier diversity space. I admire their leadership. It's tenuous to see what they go through to push the envelope for all the folks that are here at the table. So Adrian, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I think right now collectively we need a national economic value and impact study on inclusion to really measure where have we gone since slavery. All right, because I'm going to take it back to the beginning. All right, we get lost in the discussion from Booker T to Madam C.J. Walker to Jim Crow to affirmative half action to Nixon, what do you call a fraction of the action mindset, when we should have been aiming for the whole pie instead of a piece of the pie. It's time to change the dialogue. And I don't think this, again, is an emotional argument. I think the data will suggest how we move forward, and I don't have to argue with constituencies or corporate America anymore. I can tell you how much a $1.5 trillion black community, like you said, Adrian, not only moves your corporation forward, but is critical to your bottom line. And if I don't see representation, not just in employees, I need to see it in business transaction and commerce-driven activity. If that is not the discussion today, there is no discussion, and we'll go do it on our own. And that's the statement that we have to make to corporate America. Let's get back to the basics. We knew how to get corporate America straight in the beginning. That's why there is an NMSDC, because of black folks. That's why you all are at the table, because of black folks. And so at the end of the day, we're going to get back in the game again.
Tracy.
Well, I love you, and I think we owe a debt of gratitude to you.
Hey, let me stop there. And Harry, Michelle, stand up.
Yeah,
Stand up. You here? And just to the aside, your husband not here, is he? You sure are still looking good. I'm just... All right, back to you, Tracy.
Fast Pumas on there. Okay.
But I respect your husband.
And you know what I liked about Harriet Michelle was, it wasn't because of black people. It was because of all minority people. And I want to thank you. You never made us as Native Americans felt unwelcome. You know, I could say something about some other organizations that have made us felt unwelcome or unseen. They don't include us in the data. And I want to thank you. This is not just about black people. It's about all diverse communities. And for that, you should be celebrated. So, sorry, bro, I know you're not.
I just touched you, that's all.
I know. But I also want to say, Yeah, I know, and I love you, because I love your fire and your passion. But the thing about the economic argument is, I represent 1.3% of the population. No one's gonna give a damn if Indians don't buy a Ford car, you know? And so, what we wanna sell is that it's the right thing to do, we're qualified, we're capable, and inclusion helps everybody. You're gonna have more consumers, you're going to have more citizens that are not on welfare or taking up, anything that's not supposedly economic self-sufficiency oriented. And so, you can't look at me and say, if a bunch of Indians aren't going to buy, Apple computers, you guys aren't going to care, I'm sorry, And
I care.
I know you do, but I love you. But it's not going to dent your number. We need to get back to, it's the right thing to do, it's a good thing for the communities, and everybody needs a chicken in their pot. And I'm not making that statement, that was what Franklin Roosevelt, a chicken in a pot's good for everybody.
So, I'm just gonna say, they don't care in that regard. It's about the bottom line. It's the bottom line. And I think we have to put it in that business context. Now, when you say about not caring about buying the products, I agree, I can understand that argument. But I think you have a bigger argument to make, and that is around, as you talk about how many people are on some type of social support system from the federal government because there are no monies in those communities that can help sustain themselves. That's the economic impact I think we need to get back to monitoring. To Ken's point, how do we understand what that true economic impact is so that we can show that if we have monies in these communities where they can be more self-sufficient, then you won't need to have social services that are taken care of.
And I totally agree with that, and that's a good way to be about it, but no one's going to care if we don't buy any of their products. I mean, it's economic,
it's beyond the product, it's economic impact.
And it's economic impact, it's getting off of welfare, it's about taking care of our people, it's about making people, not in jail and gainfully employed. And we've seen that on reservations that have had economic development success.
And sister, I want to make it relative. We got to get out of the emotional arguments. The data will suggest where we should be and where we should go. And until we have the data, we cannot really challenge this game the way that it's supposed to be challenged. It's a game, both politically, economically, and more importantly, as far as leadership is concerned. I think that we have taken a back step as far as minority business development, and thank goodness we got a visionary president that's come in. I thank Louis Green for coming in and saving this organization because it's up to us collectively to come together, but individually we must be strong. And if we are not reminding folks where we come from, and we remind them of the history of this country. And I speak from a family that I'm part Choctaw, sister. All right.
Do you have a tribal card?
Due to the policies that existed with treaties, they did not allow black folks and slaves to take advantage of their cards. No. That is true in Louisiana and not just Mississippi. So let me tell you, on the same plantation and reservation where I come from, Choctaw Indians and black folks got along very well, even to create babies. All right, so at the same time, what I'm trying to say is, let's get our focus back on track. Let's get to the data. Let's get outside of these emotional arguments. I'm gonna love you better when I can argue with data, right? I want to know where we truly are as minorities in this game, and then when I have that information, we need to equip ourselves. And I love the leadership of now NMSDC taking on a government affairs arm so that we can lobby properly and we had it before, my apologies, but even a more aggressive, technological, sophisticated way of playing in this game politically. And I think that's where our stronghold's going to be. We will be able to present to Congress a real argument, and as advocacy organizations who mobilize properly across this country as a true national voice, therefore will come change when we back up NMSDC at the table collectively. Thank you so much.
Well, Ken,
I might let you know here.
there have been studies, economic impact studies, conducted by a variety of agencies. I think the SBA has done it for small businesses. MBDA of the U.S. Department of Commerce has done similar. The Asian American community from UCLA to other education institutions have conducted that. I agree that we could do that, collect the data. But that's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is that corporate America are increasingly facing intense, fierce competition from all corners, from other parts of the world. And they are looking at the bottom line and they're cutting costs. And so they come to us and say that you have any suppliers who have creative, innovative solutions and products, bring them to us. Large, medium, small, startup, I don't care. They want that. It doesn't matter what color, what sex, what orientation you are, as long as you have something to offer to them that help them to be innovative. So where are we now? We, America, yes, you're right, in 30, 40 years we'll be a majority minority country. Okay? So the shifting of demographic, as I said earlier, has changed the way we do business, we live and we compete. Not only domestically, but across the world. We have people, like Bill Gates said, that we don't work. There are hungry people across the Pacific and Indian Ocean that will take our jobs. We have a shortage of up-and-coming businessmen and women and students who are equipped to be today's highly intense and fast-evolving economy, digital economy. We're not ready, and we're all aging. Maybe others accepted, but we have a low birth rate. We cannot compete unless we have a ready workforce, and our workforce is not ready. So I think the majority of our attention should be looking at, yes, the new generation, not just the millennials, but the ones who come behind that. We have to increase that pipeline. But right now, corporation has to, every quarter, they look at the quarterly report. They got to deal with it. How are we going to help them? Be creative, be innovative. It doesn't matter what size you are. So we got work to do. In the meantime, our suppliers, and that's what we're here for. It's all wonderful to talk about the new generation, but we have supply coming here. They're spending a lot of money, take time off of their cash register, be here and try to do some business. What are we going to do to help them? I think this is a question that corporation has to answer.
So, go ahead, Tracy. So I was going to say, you look like you're about to bust Harriet if I don't let you say something. So I'm going to come down here. You get one response, because I will take the mic away.
First of all, I am sorry for coming in late, so I missed a lot of the conversation. I just want to address one thing about being data-driven. There is data. Maybe not as comprehensive, nor as compiled in a way that suggests our collective economic impact on the society. But one thing we got to realize, the response of what's going on in America right now, generated way back and was accelerated when Workforce 2000 came out. And they said the workforce of the future is going to be predominantly black and brown. White people began to get nervous then, okay? And I believe, I'm not employed by anybody, so if I annoy any of you, I'm terribly sorry, but I have to speak what I feel.
No question.
Okay? The hysteria that has gripped this country right now in our politics didn't just start with he who is in the White House, whose name I shall not speak. Okay? But no, that's not on the applause line. I just won't speak his name. But it didn't start with him. It started when we realized that this country was going to become increasingly minority, and the privileged position of white people was going to change. Okay? That is real. And we've gotten to a point now, it was black against white, gays against everybody else, us against them. There were so much confusion that was released by all of this worry about who we were going to become, that we even now have white men against white women. I never thought I would see that in this society. And that was evidenced during the Kavanaugh. This is incredible. incredible to think of where we have ended up. So, damn it, it is emotional. Don't tell me that having a whole lot of data, you could compile every data point in the world and present it to those people who are sitting their butts, who've been elected by us, by the way, sitting up there on Capitol Hill, and they would still ignore it. Okay, so it's emotional. The question is, how do we corral our collective economic power and political power to get people to listen to us? And I suggest that when we have strong minority businesses, we have money in our community. And money talks, and you know what the other part is, BS walks, okay? We have to figure out on a collective agenda where too much of our community doesn't understand. They don't understand the value of minority businesses in their communities. I hear this argument all the time. Minority businesses don't do anything. That's exactly wrong. They hire people. Every time somebody has a scholarship, they want to send somebody to college, they're running to you minority business owners. Give me a check, right? We have to figure out how to corral. It is very emotional because we are at a point in this society, unless we figure out how to corral our emotion and our power, we are going to be sitting back 50 years ago. I feel now like I felt like when I was an 18-year-old in Alabama getting my butt kicked, demonstrating. Everything that we have seen is going back so fast, and people my age are more upset than some of you younger people because you don't know where we came from. But damn it, if we don't figure out, and Sue, you and I have locked heads and bumped noses over the years. I don't think I ever said NMSDC was only for corporations. I was always clear that I was in business to help minority businesses, all minority businesses. So with Native Americans, with Asian Americans, with Latinos, with African Americans, we have got to come together and figure out an agenda that gets us heard in places where we need to be heard. Corporations will pay attention to us because no matter what happens, these black and brown faces are not going away. They are corporate America's customer, and we have to continue to remind them, because our birth rate is down, but it ain't as down as some other folks. Okay? We are having children. And those children will grow up to be consumers. We want them to also grow up to be businessmen and businesswomen. But we have to have a way to express our collective economic and political. Don't say this, I'm not political. Everything is political in this society. I hope you understand that. Everything is. And we have to figure out how to use it to our benefit. Thank you.
First of all, sister, thank you for the struggle. No one at all is saying that this is not emotional. What I'm saying is this is a collective, strategic attack that we must focus. And the conversation don't just have to be emotional. If we have the data, we can move the agenda collectively. But I'm also saying we have to individually be strong. There can't be one up here and the other one down here. We all must come to a level playing field so we can play this game the way it needs to be played. So all of the hard work that you've done up to this point, we don't want to see that disappear. Nor do we want to see it go backwards. But you speaking from a young man who is the 6th generation of education post-slavery. Folks who left the plantation came back and bought the plantation. So I'm going to speak truth to power, because I know as the black folks have fought for so many generations for all other minority groups to benefit, we can collectively still fight. But I can tell you, the next frontier for black folks is the economic and financial independence and empowerment of our people. And we're going to stick to that, and we are not going to be beholden. If diversity is not inclusive, we are going to move our agenda. And when it's time for us to come to the table, Harriet, you can say, I can count on them. And Adrian, you can say, I can count on that brother's organization, because guess what? When I needed to push the button and get the word out so we could get 1,000 letters up to Congress to advocate on our behalf, to push an agenda that made the economic situation of our community change, you can do it as opposed to going to a chicken dinner and getting an award. It's a new day.
So before we go on, I would like to say.
You have a moderator?
So I would like to say that in my earlier days, I was in a fraternity, and those that had gone before me, the respect, so was deference. So to Harriet, deference. And I would also like to say that this probably will be the last bigger discussion. But should there ever be another one, don't think that just because you're in the audience you get the mic. So I would just like to say, now, that being said, Adrian, were you going to say something, or I had one more question? So, Tracy, you did say something about this being the right thing to do. And I would like to hear from Sue, Ken, and Adrian, because I struggle a little bit with this being the right thing to do. And I just wanted to hear what everybody else's opinion is. I mean, is it the right thing to do? Is that a valid argument in today's?
Right for who?
The right thing to do. She said including minorities in the supply chain is the right thing to do, minority businesses.
Right for who? How do you define right? This discussion is so complex and so complicated. And there's so much baggage that comes along with it. I do not think this is your last one, Scott. It should expand. It should expand. It should expand nationally, bring more people in, have more voices. Because whenever we talked about such a small group in a different setting, I'll call it a controlled group. Okay, I feel if I were not once upon a litigator, I'll feel intimidated by all that Tracy has thrown at me. But that's okay. I'll deal with it later. When we are on a one-on-one, right? No. I'm a reasonable person, and I can level the playing field. However, I want to say this, Harriet, I never say that you said that to me. It was just said at our first meeting with her at an NMSDC conference that she said that with a group of suppliers who came along with me to greet her, and that's what she said to us. So I didn't pay attention. My supplier said, in that case, why are we here if NMSDC exists for that? But Scott, this cannot be the last discussion. It's only the beginning, because why? You included me, the Asian voice, the large voice with a small body, 5 feet, 218 pounds. Like, that is very important.
Hold the mic closer, Asian voice.
All right, so I hope that you continue with this, because I tell you what, and I cannot, I have to be honest with you, and I think this is for your benefit, folks who want to talk about your Dr. Harris, okay? I don't have a doctorate degree, so I can't.
I just wanted to my name.
All right. I call you by first name, you're about half my age.
And we can go ahead.
For many Asian Americans, particularly those who are in Silicon Valley, who are looking for venture capital money, they do not want to check the minority box, because they feel that they do that. Many investors think that they need that status to validate their capability. I couldn't get them to come through the door, okay? So many of them also come from a place still in Asia, they're still coming, that minority is truly inferior. They do not want to be identified with it, but they also understand inferior meaning having been bullied, hurt, driven away, and also terrible things are done to them. So some of them, when they come here, and there's no right or wrong about this, when they hear someone who talk the way you do about your history, they feel that, well, I have that too, but let me tell you about my ancestry when we were treated this way and that way by the colonial masters. So I would suggest that we as leaders, when we are talking, and I learned my lesson in my years in this nonprofit arena. When I was a lawyer, I don't care, I'll kick your butt. All I want to do is if I can win. But in this nonprofit arena, particularly in diverse field, you got to be careful with who you are talking to because you might hurt some sensitive feelings. Right? So let's be careful about what we talk about. Thank you.
Well, let me just say one thing. I usually don't take instruction
I'm not
as
sensitive,
far
I'm
as, advice will always be speak truth to power. And make sure that whatever you say is backed up by history and data. And when it's backed up by history and data, I'm not looking for any new friends. I'm looking for progress. And as long as I'm looking for progress and we getting progress together, then we can have another discussion. So in terms of business and in terms of us not doing business, if that makes any sense, it's time to step our game up. It's time for us to move into a new generation. It's time for us to embrace technology. And to the corporations that are here, that want to do the right thing, and corporations that are doing the right thing in so many different ways, we have to fight this struggle together. We have to be intentional in our design, and most importantly, we have to speak not only from a collective voice, but I tell you what, when you go in the African American community and you look at some of these neighborhoods, when you go in the Asian American community and you guys are out there as well in the trenches as entrepreneurs, isolated, marginalized, same thing with the Native American community. All I'm saying,
Don't speak for us.
I'm going to speak for the other half of me. And so when I think about...
Don't speak for us. Because that's how you marginalize my community. We have elected leaders, we have our traditions, we have our people.
Just hear me out, sister, before you cut me off. Before you cut me off.
I have to stand up for the Native American community because I know there's a lot of people that are white, green, black, Asian, we've got that are Native Americans, but if I don't stick up for us, then we're marginalized. And we become part of the data. No. We are nations within the nation, and we can speak for ourselves, thank you. And that's where we come from. And that's what we need to do, to stick up for ourselves and to grow our jobs and to grow our people. And I have taken too many times that I sit here, whether it's a white person, a Latino person, I can't tell you, I know there's not a Latino one, and I want to make friends with everybody, you know? And if you're all Native Americans, then great. But you didn't go through what my grandfather went through, getting beaten. And this is wait.
First of all, so I'm going to interrupt you too. First of all, so this is where you lost the will. All right? This is let's get the conversation, Scott, back on economics, because I don't want to have to school the system.
No, I'm not saying you didn't get beaten, but you let me finish, because now you marginalized me again. You just marginalized my conversation again. My people were beaten too. You did not go through with the way my family was taken too. And my family is from here. Okay, we're from here, we're First American. And I'm not marginalizing what any other person has gone through. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you gotta hear my truth too and my people's truth. So if you're mad at me, I'm sorry, I apologize, I don't want to marginalize anything what you do. But you getting mad at me marginalizes Native America. And I want you to hear me and understand what I'm saying. I'm for you. I'm for every single one of us doing good. But don't not hear what I'm saying and don't not let us speak for ourselves.
So I want to go back to the point you started off with. about this being, about how our reaction about this being the right thing to do. I don't think that anyone is arguing that this is the right thing to do, but that's not what resonates with the people who are in decision-making positions. Because whether they think it's the right thing to do or not, you have a generation of executives that are looking at the bottom line in their organizations. And that's what they are trying to measure to. And as the competition becomes even more intense, that dollar becomes even more critical, and they're finding every way to squeeze every penny out of their bottom, to get back to their bottom lines, to go pay back to their stakeholders the dividends, their stockholders. So that's a whole different conversation. So you can't use this whole argument about the right thing to do, because that's not measurable for them. I think we have to get back to the economics of this and what it does to the communities that we are trying to build and to establish and to put monies back into. You have to think about the collective power that we have and rise that voice up so they hear us. We're not
talking with one voice. I'm thinking, when I listen to all the things we just talked about today, you have an agenda, you have an agenda, you have an agenda. If we bring all these agendas together and have a couple of 1, 2, 3 priorities that we come to collectively, they will hear us. We outnumber them. So I don't understand why we are still having this conversation in these silos and not thinking about this collectively, because that's when you get the power of the people behind the work that we do, so that then they can see us as all these dollar signs coming together, and then they have to take notice and they have to listen.
So, I could go on all day with this. This is good. But we only have about 10 minutes left. So with that 10 minutes left, I would like to give each person 2 minutes for your final closing remarks, what you want to leave this audience with. And that will be on YouTube forever. And before we start, I'm going to give Tracy a hug. You seem a little fired up. Because you're going to go first.
Well, for YouTube or wherever the YouTube person is, I just want to say that American Indians, Alaska Natives, our tribal enterprises, our Alaska Native corporations, we're qualified, capable people, and we're pulling ourselves up by our bootstrings. Whether we're in a silo or with diverse communities on our own, we're going to do it, and we're all going to work together to help them. We want to make friends. We've been the first Americans here, and we don't want to be marginalized. We want to speak on our own behalves. And we got a number of great businesses, and we're coming together and doing our thing. You see, we're here at NMSDC. We're not in a silo. We're trying to get out and do our thing. And it's very important that we do it culturally representative of our tribal nations and other people. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, I didn't mean to offend anybody because of what I said, because I'm not offending anybody. If you really hear what I'm saying, I'm just saying that happens in different cultures, and I was talking my truth. So again, I don't want to offend anybody, and we're here to make friends and do business with everybody. So thank you.
Sue?
Thank you. The theme for today's discussion is the state of minority-owned businesses. It is about economics. It is about the minority business community. The women's group also have minority women in that too. So we need to bring the women in. The gay and lesbian have minorities in it too. So do the veterans and people with disabilities. So as a result, that's why I choose sometimes over the disenchantment of some of my minority advocates, that this is an increasingly diverse country. As the country becomes more diverse, so do small business owners. So therefore, my parting words are, let us work together, but do not force our community people to lose their own identity. They have to maintain their own identity. They got to eat their own food, listen to their own music, dance to their own tunes. And let us have our own independence of thoughts, of choices, and be inclusive. Be inclusive. There's no one leader among all of us. Everybody have an equal chance at the same table. No bigger voice, no smaller ones.
Scott, thank you for having me on the panel. It's an absolute honor. More importantly, thank you for the invitation to this outstanding jam-packed convention. Adrian, you did an excellent job at NMSDC. Thank you. I look forward to working with you. Most importantly, I believe that Dr. Booker T. Washington had it right. We're 118 years later, but everything that man thought of is more relevant today than it was 118 years ago. If you know your history and you know where you come from, you know where to go forward. And that's what's important. Most importantly as well, we have to make sure that diversity is not diluted or diversity is not a diversion, that it is truly inclusive. And when we think about inclusivity, let us lead with the data. I think it's an opportunity for us to not only work with Adrian and her goals for advocating for minority business across the country, but this is an opportunity for us to build up our collective communities. But more importantly, it's an opportunity for Black businesses to now grow to scale, to compete just like everybody else. And so the 90% of black-owned firms that are out there that are struggling, that are isolated, that are marginalized, that don't have access, the National Business League is back. And guess what, folks? It is our time now to get out of not only just looking for someone to do something for us. It's time to do for ourselves and and pick ourselves up in a way to where we transition not from political success or social success or educational success. I think the next reconstruction for black people, again, is the financial and economic empowerment and entrepreneurial development of our communities. And let us focus on that, and the rest of our socioeconomic ills will disappear. Look forward to working with you, Adrian, and we sign up to fight the struggle. Let's do it.
So I'm going to go back to where we started, the first question that you asked me. So Harriet, Scott asked me was I going to change the name of NMSDC because he didn't think the D was dominant enough in the word. We weren't focusing on the development piece. I said, you're not having Harriet cuss me out to change the name of NMSDC after all the brand equity she built up. But I think it's important to go back to that. I think we do have to focus on minority supplier development and making sure that we are building our businesses to be capable, have the capacity, and have the reach to be able to do business on a much larger scale, more global scale. And for me, it has never been about creating individual wealth for minority suppliers. It's been about creating generational wealth that goes back into our communities so that we can sustain and build our communities, build our schools, build our next generation of our folks coming up so that they too can achieve the American dream. We know it comes from prosperity. That's where it comes from in the black community and most communities that are represented here. Prosperity and being entrepreneurs and being able to put back into our own businesses so that we don't have to rely on anyone else to do for us what we can do for ourselves. So, thank you.
So, that is my last bigger discussion. No, but I think what we've learned is that the state of minority business is a complex issue, and it can be emotional, it can be data-driven. There are a lot of powerful people on this panel doing their best to move the needle. There's a lot of powerful people in the audience. We stand on the shoulders of those before us, but there's still a lot of work to do in the minority business community. So with that being said, the Bigger Discussion 7 is a wrap. Thank you.